Welcome to episode 3, Parshat Lecha.
Did you guys think that it would be this legit?
It's legit now.
No, it's not that legit.
Make it fade out. Make it fade.
I
Make
think
it
we
fade.
did it.
Fade into
We
the
did
voice. We did it. I don't know if we actually did it.
Hi, it's Allison.
And Kevin.
And this is week 3, Parshat Lech Lecha, Torah Between Us. So it's a big week, Parshat Lech Lecha. Whenever Lech Lecha comes around, it takes me back to my days in seminary in the old city of Jerusalem, Harova, 2015, 2016. Woo! Every Parshat Lech Lecha, the school would have a big Aliyah celebration because it was the Aliyah-versary of the head of the Midrasha of Millstone. That was the Parsha that he made Aliyah on, and so every single year we go ahead and commemorate that. And I was very excited about October 30th this year, kind of lining up with Lech Lecha, because I was really going to be able to partake in that Lech Lecha journey myself, and then a part of the Midrasha, which was another piece of my life that definitely contributed to me wanting to be in Israel for longer, for the rest of my life, building my family there. But things changed. But it's still a great week.
Yeah. What did they do? How did they celebrate it?
Oh, there's like a full-blown like falafel, Israeli flags, big party, dancing, music. He gives a speech. It's like a whole thing. It was great. It was really special. And I think other people who made Aliyah that went to the seminary also came in to celebrate, which was very, very sweet. So hopefully I'll be able to partake in one of those, even if Parshat Lech Lecha isn't directly associated with our Aliyah date.
Yet.
Hopefully it's not this time next year. Hopefully it's sooner than that.
Hopefully next year Parshat Lech Lecha will be in Israel and maybe be at Harova, maybe be in the old city.
Big time.
But even Avram, his journey gets sidetracked a little bit. God says, go to Israel. And then he gets there, and immediately when he gets there, there's a famine, and he goes to Egypt. Then there's bumps in the road. You got to roll with the punches.
As long as nobody makes it so that you have to claim that I'm your sister and pour it.
We have been told.
Oh, yeah.
That we look like siblings.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Yeah. At least we have a cover if we need to go to Egypt for something.
Yeah.
Or somewhere else. It happens twice that Avram needs to say, she's my sister. Don't kill me.
Right.
Have her.
Right. Well, he was like his niece in some way, so there is a relation there, but he wasn't literally familial.
So if Avraham and Sarah and me and you were on the Siblings Are Dating Instagram page.
That's an Instagram page?
I think it is. At least that's what I've been told. And no, we can fact check. Neither of us are really on Instagram. But it's definitely a page on social media somewhere.
I believe it.
Yeah, Siblings Are Dating. Who would win, Avram and Sarah or me and you?
I don't know. It does talk about how Avram's son Yitzchak specifically looked like him to make people assured that, this is actually Avram's son, because it was so miraculous that.
And because Sarah was just taken.
Right.
That's also part of it.
Right.
Yeah, but a lot of people say that their babies tend to look like the father at first, and then the baby goes over to the mama's side.
Well, I think it then looks like both of us.
And we look like siblings. So it comes full circle.
Yeah.
But on a more serious note, there's lots of really beautiful teachings from this week's Parsha. There's lots of action in this week's Parsha. There's lots of tension and drama. So I think we should jump into it.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I remember you mentioned after last week we recorded was that you like it better when I speak to you instead of speaking to the phone.
In both when we're recording the podcast and in normal life, yes.
So I'll try to direct some of the ideas to us to flesh out. But part of that, it's like when reading this week's Torah portion, it says Sarah or Sarai at that time tells Abraham to take an additional wife because she's not bearing children. And it doesn't say that Abraham heard her request. It says, Vayishma Avram l'kol Sarai, that Avram heard Sarai's voice. What does that make you think?
There's a difference between hearing the voice and the tone and what's behind what the person's saying versus the request itself.
Yeah. And like hearing the question behind the question, or the story behind the request, is definitely a common theme. There's a lot of I don't know, I think Avram and Sarah are probably like the husband and wife that maybe interact most in the Torah. And there's definitely a lot of lessons there. But hearing kind of like what's really behind the request, what is Sarai seeking?
So what's behind the request for me to ask you to speak to the phone versus speak to me?
Yeah.
I think, again, it comes back to Torah between us. That are we speaking to each other, or and letting the audience listen in, or are we speaking to the audience? But by the way, you double outed us this week, because now people know that we're schlubs sitting on a couch recording into a phone instead of microphones. And when we did the intro with the fancy music, we outed ourselves and we said we have a laptop here that we're playing into the one microphone from the phone and using the minimize button to make the sound fade out instead of fancy technology.
Well, the whole thing is that we share one microphone. It's Torah between us. It's like our voices, our Torah, our ideas coming together and like fusing in the middle in this one microphone. We can't have two microphones.
No way, never.
Yeah, that it wouldn't be Torah between us. It would be, I don't have another good name.
Gotta ask ChatGPT for that.
Yeah. Yeah, but there is, at least the between us, there's almost like an idea of like distance between you and yourself. Like, I don't know, when I say like, oh, I used to be a better version of myself, or
I hope you don't say that.
I say that for some things, but there's kind of like I don't know. I'm trying to think of another example, but I can't think of what. Or I let myself down, and in the beginning of the parsha it says Vayomer Hashem el Avram Lech Lecha, like go for yourself, but also like Lech Lecha, go to yourself. And the distance sometimes that we feel, there's a Hasidic saying that there's no further distance in the world than between someone's heart and someone's head. And that like bridging the gap between maybe your intellectual and emotional side or your higher self of like, oh, you know, I know that I could do better, or I expect better of myself. Like there's something like this consciousness that sometimes we ignore, we silence, and sometimes we feel like we're going towards. Is that making sense at all?
Maybe the audience can weigh in for this one, and you are speaking to the phone. But there's one idea that I definitely wanted to share that blew my mind a couple of years ago. I was on a Shabbaton for an interfaith entrepreneurship fellowship program that I did at Hunter College with a bunch of other students across various campuses. And a girl shared Dvar Torah, was Parshat Lech Lecha. Otherwise it would be, I mean, I'm assuming it is, because otherwise it would be very weird that she just shared this random Dvar Torah that's associated with Parshat Lech Lecha for no reason. But I believe it was Parshat Lech Lecha. The timing makes sense.
Well, Rav Yair at our wedding shared an idea from Parshat Lech Lecha.
That's true. It wasn't weird.
It wasn't
just
weird.
Magical.
It was just magical. Parshat Lech Lecha, it connects.
I guess so. But I'm going to go with it that it was Parshat Lech Lecha.
I believe you.
And she said that when it talks about Hashem making the promise to Abraham that his children will be as great as the stars in the sky, the pasuk says, like, go look. What's the exact phrase that it says?
The exact phrase it says, Vayomer Avram.
And Avram said, nailed it.
Yeah. No, Vayotzei oto achutza.
That he went outside.
Literally, it says that God took him outside. Vayomer, and God told Avram, Hadbeitna Shemaima, that looked towards the sky or looked towards the heavens, Ushsfor HaKochavim, and
count the stars.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this idea that the girl was describing was that Avram actually went at, like, you could just interpret that as like, okay, go look at the stars, and just as plentiful as the stars are, so too will be your offspring. But she says that somewhere, and I'm curious, I still don't know where this is sourced. Maybe she made it up and she did a great job. I don't know. But I believe it's sourced somewhere that there's a midrash that Avram actually went outside, listened to Hashem, and started going one by one by one, counting every single star in the sky. And that was like the secret and the key to Abraham and the Jewish people's greatness. It's this idea of being able to hear a task that's pretty impossible, like seems so out of reach, seems so time-consuming, difficult. Like, you can't count all the stars in the sky. Also, that seems to be a big waste of time. You get the point. You look up, you see there are lots of stars. I mean, in New York City, you just see airplanes. But assuming you're a place where there isn't a lot of light pollution, you see the stars. But Avraham, he really counted and tried counting every single one. And that was the key to the greatness, this idea of the Jewish people doing the impossible and believing that we can, even if something seems so out of reach. Like, no, we have the ability and the power to make it happen and to achieve that goal.
Yeah. And just speaking of New York City and like achieving impossible goals, I remember an idea that I heard from Rabbi Yaakov Nagain, who said that it says in one of the Psalms, Moneh mispar lakochavim v'chulam shemu ikra, that God counts the stars and that he gives a name to all of them. And that the same way that Avram is promised all of, that his offspring will be as numerous as the stars, that like each one of those stars is like precious to God, that Lechulam Shemo Ikra. And there's a famous song by an Israeli poet, Lechol Ish Yesh Shem, that each person has a name that their father and mother gave them. And it's a really nice song by Zelda. And we have this, I don't know, seemingly impossible task of over 200 people, over 200 names, over 200 stars, lights, who, and how are we going to get them back? How are they going to come home? But believing that like we can do the impossible, that we can hopefully bring back these captives safely.
And Aaron Bluestein tonight at MJ shared a really beautiful idea. So just as we have this blessing for we should be as numerous as the stars in the sky, Avram's also promised that his offspring should be like the dust of the earth, which isn't a very glamorous blessing on the surface. But he shared this beautiful idea that like what's so special about the dust of the earth, which seems just very like lowly and like it could be a curse for all, if you think about it in one perspective, who knows. But he said that there's this idea that what happens to dust when you stomp on it and when you push it around and it comes together and it starts forming, like, I don't know, thank God in our apartment we keep it pretty clean. We have an automated vacuum. We don't get to this point. But in certain scenarios, maybe if you think back to day camp, dust really collects and forms these little mounts. And the more that you push it down, the stronger and more compact and unified it becomes. And so that's kind of the blessing here. It's this idea of like time and time again, the Jewish people are pushed down, stomped on, belittled, but our reaction and our response in our atoms is to come. I'm not very physics oriented, so maybe there's a better term to use.
In our DNA.
In our DNA, in our, I don't know. Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. That's what's really happening. Our reaction is to come together and to unite and to form this mound.
Yeah, and I was thinking about in June, on our way to Israel, we stopped over in Amsterdam, and they have these little bronze stone things, strupel, stomp.
Nailed it.
These little, I think maybe they're brass tiles in the ground that mark that this used to be a Jewish home who were kicked out, and it says the family name and the year that they lived there, I think. And it was actually said, literally it's called like a stumbling stone.
Yeah.
But I'm forgetting what it was in German or Dutch. But they actually encourage you to step on them, because when you step on them, you shine them, you polish them. And this idea that like, okay, when we're stepped on as a people, that's when we shine. That's when we have this. I mean, we shouldn't need to do that, but there's something about through that difficulty, through that pressure, being able to form diamonds and shine.
That's beautiful. I mean, that also goes back to a lot of the interpretations around why, again, the stars of the sky. Like, why are we compared to the stars? It's that we're supposed to be bringing light. We're supposed to be shining.
Right. There's a really interesting idea that I heard from Ephraim Goldberg, that it talks about those who avarcha mivarechecha, that those who bless you will be blessed, umikalelcha, and those who curse you, or I will curse them. But there's another way of reading the word or, which means I will enlighten, that those who bless you will be blessed and you'll receive blessing, and those who curse you, or I will show your brightness. And that through kind of also being put down, that somehow that will also be an opportunity to show our resilience and our ability to respond to tragedy and to being cursed and spit on.
Yeah. I mean, I really think a lot about all the people on college campuses right now and how hard it might be to shine as they're literally being spit on and pushed down in all sorts of ways.
Yeah, but when sometimes you feel like you're on the other side, like Avram's called Avram HaIvri, and Ivri, I say, is from literally means the Hebrew, but it means Me'ever, who is the other, that the whole world was maybe on one side and Avram was on the other side. And even though he and his wife and maybe his people who were with him were very, very small, he was able to, at the Nefesh Asher Asu B'Charan, it talks about the people, the souls that he formed in Haran, that he was able to have an influence amongst the darkness, amongst the people who maybe were belittling him or saying, you believe in this God of nothingness, what is that? But he had this ability to be a blessing, to be a light, and to, even when the world was not on his side or his environment was not with him, he shined. He was able to bring those souls.
So thinking of being a blessing and blessing others, what would you like to share with everybody as the final blessing for this podcast and for Shabbat?
I just want to bless everyone that you can see meaning in your life, and that you could really tap into the blessing that exists in your life, and be able to illuminate others, illuminate yourself, and illuminate the world on this Shabbat, no matter even if you feel low.